Anybody who's watched The Wheel of Time or is a fan of the Wheel of Time books is probably going to be expecting one thing from this video. You're probably expecting me to go on and on and on about how disappointing it was or how much better it could have been, or basically say anything about the number of things that were wrong with that show. And like, I'm aware that it has a lot of problems. It wasn't executed as well as it could have been. That's like for sure. I'm not arguing that. And maybe at a later date, I'll go through and I'll do my proper series review where I actually talk about things of substance. But I was thinking about the Wheel of Time the other day, and I felt this urge to just talk about it and give it some love because despite all of its problems, I genuinely loved this show. I was enjoying myself while I was watching it. I really liked certain characters and I wanted to know more about them and the world. I never read the books. So this was my only taste of this world. And man, like, it's such a rich world. And the magic system is so interesting and it has so much lore to it that it's just so intriguing to me. And so when they announced that it was cancelled, I was so disappointed. Like, I hear everybody who says that it was a terrible show. I hear you. And I've seen all the videos of people complaining about one aspect of it or another, or the writing or the acting, how it deviates from the actual books. And all of this kind of stuff is fair. And all of those are valid perspectives and opinions to have, of course. But at the end of the day, I'm somebody who just loves fantasy and I love losing myself in a fantasy world. And that's what the Wheel of Time gave me. On top of having some really good actors, which I'm going to talk about, but I think it's not even just the actors, but they had really good characters as well. And so that's what I want to talk about today. It's funny because I just put out my Riverdale video, so I feel like maybe this is just my era of talking about or defending shows that are pretty bad. But you know what? I'm embracing it. And though, okay, this is not necessarily a defense of the Wheel of Time, it's more of me just wanting to say something nice about a show that I did actually like. And I wish that they had continued it despite all of its problems, because I think that it was getting better. I think that they were building and learning as they went along, and that it could have kept getting better. I don't think that it was getting worse, which is something that a lot of shows do tend to do, particularly fantasy ones. There was also just the potential that I saw in it that I was like, if they could just stick with it and just push through it. Like, I know that this can be so good. But of course, they didn't. And now we may never know. But we got what we got. And actually, I'm not opposed at all to going through it again, watching it, season by season and talking about the stuff that I liked and pointing out the stuff that was not so good. But let's backtrack a bit. If you haven't watched The Wheel of Time, or if you didn't get very far into it and you've not read the books, it's this very interesting fantasy action show that has all the great elements of a fantasy. It has magic, and it's the age-old story where there's this big bad, who I think they call the Dark One, and then there's the chosen one, the Messiah, who is prophesied to rid the world of darkness or destroy it or something like that. It's very ambiguous, actually, whether he's the savior or the destroyer. And so we're following this group of characters as they all try to figure it all out. And so therefore we have the teacher, the mentor character, who is the great actress Rosamund Pike. And I can't tell you guys, I actually don't even care if anybody disagrees with me on this fact. I think that she killed it in this show. I think she gave a great performance. Her character, who is called Moiraine, I think is such an interesting, complicated character. And who better to bring that character to life than Rosamund Pike, honestly. So Moiraine is the one who is basically tasked with finding the Messiah, right? Um, the only problem is like when she does finally get to the right place, she doesn't know exactly who it is. There's four kids all around the same age who could potentially be the dragon, who is the chosen one. I think they're supposed to be teenagers, and they all have equal potential to be the dragon. She genuinely doesn't know, so she has to take them all with her on this huge journey while she figures it out and protects them. At the same time, she's also needing to teach them more about the world because they come from this middle of nowhere fantasy land. Like I said, she gets to this random place. I think it's called the Two Rivers. And they're basically all farm kids. Like they're way out there. They're like the hobbits, right? They're very far away from the rest of society, and so they don't really know a lot about the global politics or magic or any of that kind of stuff. Um, and then they're also just kind of bratty teenagers who don't want to listen to her and they don't trust her at all. And I'm going to be honest, like the teenagers, these four kids, they're probably the least interesting part of the Wheel of Time for me. I don't really like them, to tell you the truth, especially in season one. But the main guy who, okay, spoilers. By the way, did I say that? Extreme spoilers for everything Wheel of Time all through the seasons. You've been warned. All right, so the main guy who we do end up finding out he is the chosen one. He's the dragon, and he's called Rand al'Thor, which is, to be fair, it's a cool name. And he was just, I think, first of all, in the beginning, I found him extremely insufferable. I didn't really like him, like, at all. I found him very whiny. And I was like, I just didn't feel to me like his character should be acting this way. Very, very antagonistic towards Moiraine, despite the fact that she, like, saved them, and she's just so angry. And I just kept being like, why are you being such a brat? And he's also kind of weird with his girlfriend, who I just was like, I don't know, I didn't like him that much. But I started to kind of appreciate his character a little bit in the last season that they put out, anyway, season 3. I still didn't really like him, like, in the sense that I would say he's one of my favorite characters, but I could kind of see what his character was meant to be. That it was sort of this intentional thing with his character. He's not the typical chosen one. As I said, the prophecy is very ambiguous whether he is actually a good or bad thing for the world. And so because of that, I really feel like if we had just spent more time, like if the show had gone a little bit longer, I would have come to actually really appreciate this sort of protagonist. But as I said, we will never know. And then one of the other boys is called Perrin, and I did not like him even until the end. I should have. I really should have liked him because I generally really enjoy wolf-related lore because I just love wolves. Who doesn't love wolves, So anytime there are werewolves, or like in the Game of Thrones where we had the dire wolves and their interesting connection with the Starks, you can't make me hate that sort of storyline. But in this, we have Perrin, who is some sort of wolf being. I don't think he's a werewolf necessarily. I don't even remember, really. I don't think he turns into a wolf, but he has wolf powers. He can, like, communicate with wolves. He has an interesting connection with wolves. And so I should have really liked him. The thing is, like, as I said, you can't make me hate this sort of storyline. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I love the piece of lore, but he was the worst character to bring this to life because he's so bland. And it's just like, even in the later seasons, as everyone else kind of gets more characterization and they start to grow on me, he just stayed as this weird kind of unnecessary character. I didn't really understand what they were doing with him. I didn't really get his point in the story. And then as an added issue, I didn't like the acting, that the actor's performance felt very weak to me probably one of the weakest of everybody in the show. Um, it was just weird most of the time, and also like I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me. I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling for you in this moment. I don't know. So I couldn't really relate to him, and I ended up kind of just hating whenever they would spend any screen time on him. And then we have this other character. She's part of the main group, but she's not one of the teenagers. She's introduced as like a wise woman in the Two Rivers, and she's older than the four kids. And she's supposed to be like the mentor that they trust where they don't trust Moiraine. And she herself also doesn't really trust Moiraine at all. And she really just only cares about protecting these four kids. But oh my days, like, oh God, she's the most annoying character. Like, I didn't like Perrin, but as a character, he wasn't annoying. I didn't like him because he did nothing for me. But Nynaeve, oh, she pissed me off all the time. She was so annoying because she was, first of all, so arrogant, right? So entitled. And then she's supposed to be so powerful, but then she gets this weird mental block where that kind of keeps her from being able to use her powers. So she's essentially just completely useless, but then she still has so much arrogance, and she still doesn't listen to the people around her, like Moiraine. She doesn't listen to the actual true masters of magic, the people who have actually spent time in the real world, because she also still just comes from the Two Rivers. She doesn't know anything. But she, like, all these people around her who've been using magic and training in this magic for decades and dealing in all of this politics and with the danger and the darkness for longer than she has, it's like, even if you don't trust them, like, I get it, they are suspicious people, and their intentions, like, nobody knows what their intentions really are, and she's just on this one track mind of protect these kids because, like, everybody else died. And she's like, she wants to be this protective mama bear. Okay, I get it. But she was just always so hard-headed, and it never felt like she was actually learning anything. And it never led to anything good, Like, that sometimes you can have these characters who are gifted at a young age, and therefore they don't listen to the people in charge because the people in charge are, like, as I said, in all honesty, they are suspicious. So they don't listen to them, but then at the end of the day, they have good instincts, or they end up being right, or like their way of thinking ends up actually solving a problem that the people who keep saying they know better weren't able to do, With Nynaeve, it never turned out that way. I used to just be like, can you just shut up and do what you're told? I wish that she could just listen to people for once. She just always did whatever she wanted to do and felt very righteous in herself for that. But then there were so many things that she would do, and it would just be like, you are so stupid. And then with her magic, in the beginning, it would just come out very conveniently at times to be this deus ex machina because she is powerful. And everybody's always like, oh my God, she has this incredible power. And then they show us that power, but then it's not through any sort of growth for her character that gets her to these leaps in her power, or like whenever she showcases her power, it's not the culmination of any sort of story arc. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, don't forget, she's very powerful. I don't know. Her character, probably the worst one for me on the entire show. And that's saying a lot because I really did not like Perrin. But then there are the other kids. So there's Egwene, and I actually did like Egwene, even a little bit in the beginning when I didn't like all of them. But I did like her because she's introduced already kind of feisty, and like she knows what she wants. And it was so interesting because she's choosing herself from the beginning, despite the fact, like, yes, she's in love with this boy and he's our main character, and you're thinking like, oh, they're setting us up for this love story or whatever, this romance, which of course they are, but it's like it was so interesting to me that it starts off so rocky because she doesn't choose him in the beginning, and I kind of like that about her. And then more and more, as the show went on, she goes through so much. She suffers, man. I think more than anybody else, she really suffers. And she goes through some really terrible like torture. She's kept prisoner for a really long time. It's horrible what she goes through. But it changes her, of course. And she then gets to have this very nice, clear, defined growth as a character. So that when she gets to where she is at the end of season 3, where she's strong and she's confident and she's powerful, we actually got to see how she got there. So I was rooting for her, you know, like I'm so invested in her, and every decision she makes, I'm like, yeah, I understand how you got there. I believe that you're doing the right thing. I felt like she was at least smart, you know, which I didn't really feel for any of the other characters. They still felt very much like petulant teenagers, but for her at least, I felt like everything she'd gone through had matured her in a way, kind of like Sansa in Game of Thrones, you know, how she starts off so naive, and then because of all the horrible things she goes through, at the end of it, she's like the person who understands the world better than any of the other Starks, right? Like she's like, I understand this game of politics we're playing. I understand all these evil people. I can think like them. I can outmaneuver them. I kind of feel the same trajectory with Egwene, where she got the harshest initiation into the real world, and it's like, oh yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore, you know, and so now she has this smartness about her, at least, that felt so earned. And therefore, even if she made decisions that were not the best or she made a mistake, I still felt like she was at least a character on par with everyone else. The best of the kids group, in my opinion. Better than Nynaeve as well. I grouped Nynaeve in that kids group, the 5 of them. She's the best of the 5, Egwene. And then we have the last guy, who is Matt. And I think with Matt's character, he's supposed to be the odd one out in this group of 5. He's supposed to be the screw up. He's kind of, you know, down on his luck. He doesn't believe in himself really. He never really knows what he's doing. He doesn't have the same kind of purpose as the others, or even this quality of like honor, you know, the hero's mentality that all the rest of them have. He doesn't really have it so much. It feels more like he's just kind of been hanging around these people for so long that he's like tagging along with the group, but I don't think there was even ever really any serious consideration for him being the dragon, even when we didn't know who there was. For a while, I thought they might do it just because it would be a shock, like subverting expectations, because you expect it to be either the two, you know, very hero-like men who are like Rand and Perrin, right? There'd be the obvious options. They do embody it in a way. Or you have Nynaeve, who is powerful, powerful. Everyone's like, oh, she's so powerful. And then you have Egwene, who is, yeah, she could have been. But with him, it's just kind of like very unlikely, you know. So I thought maybe they might do it just for the shock factor of it. But yeah, he doesn't have the same energy, is what I'm trying to say. And even on a power level, like Egwene and Nynaeve can use magic, and Rand is the chosen one, and Perrin becomes this wolf guy thing. But Matt is just kind of a guy, you know, bumbling about all the time. And he's funny, and he does end up having this horn, but I don't even know what this thing was supposed to be. I don't know where he got it from. I don't know if it's like special to him, like that he can blow it or something. Like, can nobody else blow this thing? I have no idea, guys. I genuinely, the way that whole thing works out, I've no clue. I know the horn itself is important, but I don't know if Matt as its user is. And I don't know if it's necessarily like a power that he has. I have no idea. And then here's when he hears something so funny, kind of embarrassing as well. I didn't even realize that the actor had been switched. Like, I think they, at the end of season 1, they brought in a new actor because of COVID or something. I can't remember. I didn't notice. So it was only like after the fact, way into season, probably even in season 3. Like, it was a long time before I saw somewhere on social media, I think, that it was so funny how they just switched the characters or something like that. Or people were saying that, like, it's weird to have the character be played by someone else. And I was like, wait, what? When did they do that? And I had to go back and look. I didn't even notice. I was like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Anyway, the new actor, the second guy, I think that he does a good job of bringing to life this sad, insecure boy who just kind of has no expectations for himself. Almost because he knows that nobody else has any expectations of him. So he doesn't really see himself as any sort of hero or anything like that. A little bit only in the sense that he wants to protect his sisters, but it's not, he just has this kind of darkish history that the others don't have. And it's almost like he's always teetering on the cusp of depression. And that's why he's the comic relief character. He's kind of like, yeah, my life has always sucked and my life is always gonna suck type of vibe. So he goes through it all with comedy and false bravado. And again, I think that he does get a good character arc ish. I don't know if I would really necessarily say character arc, but he does go through some stuff and change and grow, which again, if the show went on, I feel like we could have seen even more of that growth. And obviously it could have been better. As I said, there's a lot in the Wheel of Time that could have been better, but I think that they do a good job of addressing him. Like, they don't just let him be a comic relief that goes nowhere. He's not always just the butt of jokes, you know. They make sure that he does serve a purpose in this story, which is really more than I can say for Perrin. He does get deep moments, and as I said, his storyline is a little bit, it starts dark. It's dark. He has a lot of tragic things in his past, and the way the actor plays it brings out that even when he's making jokes, and even though he's supposed to be this lighthearted guy, there's this underlying sadness to his character, and it keeps you aware that there's more to him. And then he also gets this really nice friendship later on that I did enjoy with a character who I think she was a seer. She sees the future, and I liked their dynamic. Okay, so moving away from the kids. Oh, I have wanted to talk about this. Oh, I've been excited because this is the main reason that I loved The Wheel of Time. Because outside of those kids, who, as I've said, are not my favorite, the grown-ups. Oh my God. Did I love these grown-ups? So we have Rosamund Pike's character, Moiraine, that I've already said was so good. But then she is part of the Aes Sedai. She's an Aes Sedai. Blue Raja, I think. Which are, the Aes Sedai are the magic users in this world, and they're all female. And then they have these male protectors that are called warders, which is basically you bond magically. As an Aes Sedai, you bond magically with a man who then becomes your like personal god or something like that. And you go through life together. It's this very, very deep soul level connection with this person that spans the rest of your lives. I think you can sever it or you can turn it on and off. But it's very deep and very personal and connects you where you feel each other in this really intense way. And you practically know everything about this person and you know what they need and when they need you. And it's not even just about physical like protection, but there's also the emotional stuff that you really lean on each other a lot for. Basically, you're woven together so tightly. And it's not a romantic thing all the time. Anyways, it doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic thing. Moiraine and Lance is not romantic. And you can have partners separate from your dynamic. Like as an Aes Sedai, you can have a partner, romantic partner. As a warder, you can have a romantic partner. Like Lan ends up being romantically involved with Nynaeve, which I didn't love. But tell me that is not so interesting. Like that Aes Sedai warder bond is such an intriguing concept. And it's so, like, I loved the way it was brought on screen because I'll talk about it a bit later. But we get to see we get to see like different versions of what this means, and we get to see how deep that connection is and what it actually means for this character. And it's just so good. Anyway, so I love Moiraine, and I wore the Lan. I don't know how I feel about him, like as a standalone character. I don't think that I really care so much about him. He's okay, but I do love the relationship that they have, which is just very quiet, and they don't really talk to each other much. They just know, because they have this connection. They just understand each other, and they've been together in this relationship for decades, right? So it reaches a point where it's like you don't need to say everything out loud, you just and does it get put through the ringer, and they get tested, and I love it. I love seeing the effects of the strain that gets put on their bond, because again, like I said, spoilers, Moiraine loses her magic, and so therefore they lose this connection that they have, and now they can't feel each other the way they have been for decades, and it's so hard on both of them because they're both not dramatic people, so they just suffer in silence the loss of this connection, killing them both. And of course Moiraine is also going through it because she also doesn't have magic, right? And she's lost this huge part of who she is, and he knows she must be struggling, but they don't talk, right? So even now that they don't have their connection, they don't talk to each other, and it's just so sad and tragic. And at the end, not at the end of the show, at the end of this arc, this storyline in particular, she gets attacked, and usually he would know like well in advance because of the connection. He would know she's in danger, but the connection isn't there, and he just shows up anyway, and it's just like because he knows her and he can't leave her alone, and he, despite the fact that she keeps on trying to chase him away, he can't leave her, and he shows up and he saves her, and it's just like it was so satisfying, amazing. I loved it. Then we have the rest of the Aes Sedai. Oh my days, guys. I cannot tell you how much I love all of the Aes Sedai. Like, they were honestly some of my favorite characters, just full stop. Like, I really like Siuan. And aside from her relationship with Moiraine, which I did like as well, but as just her as a character, being the ruler, she's like the top Aes Sedai. She's supposed to be, very powerful. When you find out more about her and her past, and you realize that her and Moiraine have this plan, but that they haven't told anyone, and it's because they know that they need to find the dragon, the Messiah, and they're not telling anyone else because there's a ton of politics. I think they heard a prophecy or something like that. Like just the two of them were present for, I don't remember if it was a prophecy, but they both got some piece of information that nobody else has. And so in that moment, like years and years ago, and then in that moment, they both decided like, okay, they both had roles. Moiraine was supposed to go out and she was supposed to find the dragon, and Siuan was supposed to get everybody else ready for the dragon's return. She's supposed to do all the political side of things and handle all the conflicts between the different factions within the tower. And okay, wait, quick side note, because that's another thing that I actually really, really enjoyed about this show. Like the lore, like I told you guys, oh man, I was drowning in this lore and I was loving it because like you have these Aes Sedai, right? The magic users, and again, they're all female. And so then within the Aes Sedai, you have these different colors, the 7 Ajahs, which are blue, green, red, yellow, white, brown, and gray. And depending on which color Aes Sedai you are, then you have a different role or function. So I mentioned before, Moiraine is blue. Alanna is a green. I'll talk about Alanna. They're called Battle Ajah. And then there's also the secret black Ajah, who are basically Aes Sedai who forsake their oaths and turn to the dark side. And I found all of this so interesting because usually we hear about how governments in fantasy or dystopian worlds segregate the people that they rule over into different factions, right? That's the whole thing with like Hunger Games or Divergent. And then in this world, it's not that the people are segregated this way, it's the government itself, the ruling class that, not even class, but like the ruling power that has these different factions within it. And that is so interesting. And they're all so different. Like, I do kind of wish that the show had leaned a little bit more into this part of it and shown what that actually looks like in practice. We only really get to know a lot about the red Aja, but like I wish I could have seen the actual difference between all the different colors just a little bit more to understand. There are some of them that I don't even think we get a person who talks from that faction, like white. I don't think so. But anyway, so you have Siwon, who her job when they heard this prophecy or they got the information that they got years and years ago, she hasn't done a good job of that. And so by the time Moiraine has now found the dragon, it's just conflict upon conflict because nobody can agree on what they should do with him or what they should do with Moiraine because she technically went against the rules. Like she's not supposed to be hunting the dragon. That's the Red Aja's job, right? And like Siwon can't say that she told Moiraine to go do this because why would you do that? And I can't remember why they don't want anyone to know that they got this piece of information. But it's just like they have all of these secrets. And so they're playing this weird game where it's like she has to keep up appearances, even though she freaking loves Moiraine, bro. Like they're in love with each other, but they have to keep up these appearances and she's trying to keep control. And it is so interesting. So like with all of this tension, of course her power, like her standing as a ruler, starts to become unstable because of course you have the bad guys who are just like needling things and pushing things, but also because of all the secrets she's keeping, it's obvious that there's things she's not telling everyone, and so they start losing trust in her, and there's so much scheming. And we also kind of get to see a little bit of her intelligence. And then it's like, yes, she's powerful, but she also has fear and she's very vulnerable with Moiraine because she loves her. Ah, I just love it so much. And then you have Alanna, who, oh my God, I loved Alanna. She was my favorite character in this show. Oh my God, I loved Alanna. And there was a period where they tried to convince me that they were going to kill her. And I was like, if you guys even, like, I swear, if they tried, I was just going to burn down every single production studio. I don't even care that they're not the ones who made The Wheel of Time. All of it we're going to pay because you cannot kill Alanna. I loved her so much. And she's a battle Raja, like Aja. Like I said, she's green. So she's super cool, man. And she's bonded to two warders, and her connection with them is romantic in nature. It's very sexual, and they talk a lot. You know, they talk to each other a lot, and they feel their emotions like loudly and without shame in people's faces. You know, they just don't care. It's very, very opposite to the dynamic between Moiraine and Lan, and I loved that so much. And then when Alanna's water died, oh my God. I can't remember this guy. I didn't feel any real sadness about his death because of him. I didn't care. But when he died, the way they made us feel it, like the way they showed us what it would feel like for an Aes Sedai to lose that connection to their water. And it was so interesting because, as I said, Alanna is bonded to two. So she has two men and one died. So you might think because Alanna still has the other warder, it's not that bad. But it was so clever the way they showed us the strain it even put on their connection. Because they're feeling this loss, and then on top of it, they're feeling each other's pain. Like, it's not even just that Alanna is sad because she's lost her warder. She's double depressed because her other warder is also depressed. And the way she was just like, his sadness was overwhelming. Like it was drowning her. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so interesting. Oh my God. Anyway, moving on. We then have the bad guys. Oh, these were such interesting bad guys. Oh my. Especially Liandrin. Okay, so we have Liandrin, who is an Aes Sedai, and she's red. And once again, the acting, I think, was amazing. But then the other thing, again, spoilers, before you realize that she's actually evil, like she's just evil, she's black, Aja, right? But before you even know that, you kind of get this interesting dilemma where it's like, is she really bad? Because thinking about it in terms of the established rules of this world, the only people who can use magic are women. Because when men use magic, they go mad. And when they go mad, they do horrible things with their powers. So Liandrin, who is part of the Reds, their whole thing is to basically catch the men who wield magic. For her, it's like, we've always been knowing that if we ever find the dragon, we need to kill him ASAP because he's going to destroy the world. Like, the whole tower knows that they cannot have such a powerful wielder of magic in a man, right? And it's like, if he ever comes, it's destruction, it's doom. So her adamant that Moiraine is breaking the rules and that Siouan is not a good leader because she's in love with Moiraine or whatever. She has a soft spot for her. I can't remember if people know that she's in love with Moiraine, but definitely that she has a soft spot for her. So it's like she's not doing the right thing. She's not following the rules and she's just doing whatever she feels like, which is dangerous in a leader. Then you can almost kind of see where it makes sense, right? It doesn't make her evil. She's just kind of like an antagonist. But then we find out, like, no, she is actually just evil and she sold her soul. But then at the same time, you learn her backstory, which is absolutely tragic. She has a terrible backstory, and they explain how she ended up being seduced into the darkness. And you're like, damn, like, okay, I kind of get it. You know what I mean? And then she had this storyline where you find out that she actually has a son, and her son is very old, like he's dying of old age. And she's, of course, still young, whatever, because magic. And she loves him so much. And she still calls him, like, my baby boy or something like that. Oh, bro, it was sad. And then when he dies, it kind of has this feeling of finality for her character, where it's almost like whatever redemption we could have maybe been seeing with her, or like whatever we thought you could reason with her, like with the death of her son, it's like, no, now it's the only man she ever loved, the only man she ever actually cared about now is dead, and so she doesn't have any she doesn't care about men anymore. For her, it's now just like, whatever, they can all die. And it's like, damn it, like, I get it, I feel you. So she's an interesting one. I suppose she's like the sympathetic villain, because she is bad. She just do bad things. She is completely converted to the dark side, but it's like, also there are these underlying aspects where you're like, I don't know if she's necessarily a bad person or if she's just kind of gotten in so deep that she can't get out now. I don't know. There's layers to her evilness, right? But then we have the actual proper dark gang. I don't know what they're called, the dark minions or whatever, because it's not a dark one himself, but like his core group, his Death Eaters. I don't know. One of them is Lanfear, and again, like, Jesus, this show spoiled us with powerful women, and we got powerful women of all ranges. So you have like the easy to love Alana, and then you have pure evil Lanfear, and then you have this evil but sympathetic kind of, her love was twisted into hate sort of thing. She was abused as a kid and then turned to the darkness, Liandrin. And then you have the quiet, brooding, sort of suspicious, mysterious, almost bitchy in a way, but a good guy, Moiraine. And then you have powerful woman leader Siouan. You know what I mean? Like, we just have so many different women being portrayed. I love it so much. There's no feeling of like an agenda of like, oh, female power, female empowerment or whatever. Like, that's not the narrative that I felt being pushed on me. And all of these women are dynamic. All of them are interesting. All of them are clever in their own ways. All of them are essential to the story. Anyway, so I was saying that we have Lanfear, who reminds me so much of Cate Blanchett for some reason. She's very regal. And you get this feeling that she is just centuries old, and she's powerful and she's smart. And then again, like, her allegiance, you're kind of like, what do you want? Like, you're evil. She's evil, obviously, but like, are you? Because she doesn't even do anything actually evil, I don't think, as far as I can remember. She manipulates Rand, but it's not even a manipulation of like that she makes him do anything dark, or that she's trying to hurt him or cause his downfall. I think it was just because they used to be in love and she misses him or she wants him back. I don't know. It's just, again, it's like an interesting dynamic. And then you have Mo Gideon, who is just an insane character, another powerful woman, but of a different kind. Like her power is not the intimidating presence of Lanfear, but like, oh my god, you know there are those people who are dangerous because you never know what they're gonna do, and they're intelligent, and you underestimate them because of how they present themselves, but then that's what makes them so dangerous. That's who Mo Gideon is. And she was so thrilling to watch because it's like, this person is sadistic and dark and very, very dangerous. And it's just so very intriguing to watch. I wanted to see so much more of her. I wanted Lanfear and the others to start to realize what a threat she actually is, and to see it all play out. Like, oh man, I'm so unhappy that we're never gonna see it. And then we have Elida, who is, first of all, I was so happy when I saw her come on the show because I really love this actress. I can never say her name, but just listening to her talk, oh my days, you know what I mean? Like, I could listen to her talk for hours. And she comes in, and it's kind of similar to Leandrin at the beginning, where you don't really, you don't know if it's that she's evil, or if it's just that she's an antagonist who wants power. Like, the thing with Elida is that she comes in as this sort of challenger to Siwan, where she wants to take over, and like she's actually a threat. She comes in from basically nowhere. I don't even know where she comes from, but she comes in, and you can feel the way her presence is just shifting things within the tower, and she's affecting people and persuading people away from Siwan. And she plays this politics game so cleverly. And it has devastating consequences. It's all of these power plays and the politics of it, which should be boring, like if you think about the world, like the things that are actually going on. We have all these dark, I don't remember what they're called. I'm going to call them the Death Eaters. When you have all of these Death Eaters running around now, and then we have the main crew, the five kids who are all having their own misadventures of, and it's like, that's supposed to be the main story. And so you'd think like all of this politics stuff is the most boring, but I was genuinely like, I wish they had spent a lot more time on that and let us actually sit with the fact that Siwan is losing power, and to actually see how all the different Aja are being persuaded away from trusting her. Because as far as I can tell, like, she's been a good leader. So it can't be that just because people have now come in and they're whispering things in the corridor. Like, like I wanted to see more, like spend more time there. I just found it way more interesting than a lot of the stuff that was going on with the five kids. For me, those were the weakest parts, honestly. The stuff with Rand got a little bit more interesting when he was separated from everyone. But yeah, still, anything that had to do with the kids, like, I'd have been perfectly fine if they cut that screen time and spent more time with Aes Sedai. So yeah, while I agree wholeheartedly that there was a lot about the Wheel of Time that was not good, it was not executed well, it was not written well, and acting as well. There were some actors, particularly the younger ones, that were not carrying their weight, that's for sure. But I think that, again, as someone who has never read the books, I think that this was such a fascinating world, and the magic system was so interesting, and the whole concept of weaving and channeling as opposed to simply just having magic innately within you. It's more of like you're tapping into it. It's something you're accessing, like a well that you're dipping into. I really liked that. And I also liked the effects, the actual like special effects. I don't think that I've mentioned that, but I did like the way the magic and stuff like that looked. It didn't look fake, I don't think it was bad at all. And the story itself, as I said, like all the politics going on in the Tower with the Aes Sedai was amazing. I really liked all that. And then when we start to learn more about the Dark Crew, the Death Eaters, all the bad people and the inner politics going on there as well, with like Lanfear and Mo Gideon and all the others, like they're on the same side of darkness. They're serving the same Dark One, but they're not exactly friends. They're not they don't even really like each other. They could kill each other. You know what I mean? Like that was something that I was interested to learn more about. And then Lanfear actually kind of sort of turning on the dark side ish. Like she was partnering with Moiraine, and it's like, why would she do that really? Like because she loves Rand? I don't know. And when you're dealing with people who are tempted into darkness, you're dealing with people who are not particularly loyal and they're very selfish. So of course you're going to have all these betrayals. There's a lot of unease and there's no trust. And so seeing that and how each of the different members of the darkness were playing each other and pursuing their own agendas, it was so fascinating to me. And then I also really liked, as I said, there were hints of good arcs with the kids, particularly Matt and Egwene. I think they had the best ones. And Rand was getting there for me as well. Like he was growing into this interesting protagonist who is not necessarily the hero in a traditional sense. Because again, you see, the prophecy was not a straightforward thing that like a savior will rise and conquer the darkness. It's not Harry Potter or Frodo, like it's very much that nobody actually knows if he's going to be good for them or bad. Nobody knows if he's going to go mad with the magic that he's able to use. And every time he uses magic, it's like this huge problem because you can see the fear growing in Moiraine because she's like, every time he taps into it, he gets closer and closer to going mad. Like he will go mad eventually. Everybody is sure about that. But they're like, is he going to save us from the darkness or is he going to be the one who destroys us all? And that's why she has this weird position that where nobody can really know whether to trust her or not because she's like, oh yeah, Rand, like I'm here for you, but only if you're going to save us. If I start to sense that you're going crazy, like I'm gonna kill you. And it's so interesting. It's like that dynamic is so strange between the savior and their mentor that I don't think it's something we've really seen before. I was beginning to appreciate that dynamic, which was making me understand Rand as a character a little bit more and the things that I may not have liked about him before. Because what was frustrating me was that in the beginning I thought that, like, we're supposed to really like these five, or I suppose four at the time because we thought Nynaeve was dead, but we're supposed to really like these kids, right? And one of them is going to be the hero, the savior, the messiah. So I just kept being like, am I supposed to like this kid Rand? He's so annoying and I don't see myself necessarily like rooting for him, like I'm really on Moiraine's side the entire time, just being a brat. But then now, towards the end, I was like, are we supposed to really like him like that? I don't know if he's necessarily supposed to be a very likable guy. Like, of course, they wanted us to be invested in him, and he's not a bad guy, right? But even the time he starts to spend with Lanfear in his dreams or whatever, like who he becomes, where you're like, he's not. You see, like Perrin is all very noble and all very like, oh yeah, this is a typical hero type of thing. Boring. But anyway, Rand, I think what I started picking up on a little bit is that he and Moiraine are very similar. And he starts to realize that he's a lot more like Moiraine than he thought. And he really detested Moiraine in the beginning. So that was an interesting journey as well that I would have liked to see a little bit more of. Just seeing that, like the duality of his character, where it's like, yes, he's a good guy. And there's the one version of him who would just like to be a nice, happy farmer boy and be happy with Egwene. But then there's this other side of him who is powerful and kind of dangerous and kind of dark, And it's like, this is the part that Moiraine sees and is like, I don't know about this guy, like she's always on edge with him. And it was coming out more and more and more, and I wanted to see it. I wish we could have seen it. As I've said, Perrin, I think, was a lost cause. I don't think there was anything they could have done with him past what they had done that could have made me like him, because I think they butchered a lot of what his growth could have been. And I wonder what more could have been done to appeal him to me moving forward, because there was a very interesting thing that happened in the beginning. He killed his wife, right? And then that could have been something that is, of course, it's very traumatic. And if they had used it properly, I think it could have done wonders for his character, but they don't. He doesn't really grieve her. And then suddenly he starts to feel extremely guilty, but it's like mostly because he's developing feelings for this other woman who then basically tells him, like, look, don't dishonor your wife's death by feeling guilty. She was a warrior and she knew what she was doing. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And then they move on from it. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I feel like you see Matt go through a lot of psychological stuff, and Egwene goes through a lot psychologically, and even Rand starts to go through a lot psychologically, especially the more he starts to use magic, and with the entrance of Lanfear, and even Nynaeve, who I don't like, does go through this entire psychological journey. I don't think they handled it very well, which is part of what annoys me a bit about her. But the whole reason that she can't like use magic, this whole block that she has, is because she went through a traumatic psychological event, and she's dealing with this weird loss of a life that she didn't actually live. Like, she went through some trials, and the whole thing is that you live in this reality that you have to find your way out of, but it feels so real and it's so difficult to actually get out. And you only have like the exit appears only once or something like that, and if you miss it, that's it. You live in that reality forever. And so she was in there, and she was married and she had a daughter and she was living this wonderful life, but then eventually she does end the simulation essentially, which was crazy because nobody's ever done that, and everybody was like, oh my god, once again it's like, oh, she's so powerful. But now that she's come out, like, ending the simulation killed her daughter, right? And so she's grieving that loss, that it's like, it's actually not a loss because it wasn't real, but she is going through it mentally, and it's blocked her for some reason. And I'm not a huge fan, again, of how they handled it, but she does go through it. Whereas Perrin, like, I don't know, it doesn't feel to me that he goes through anything, even with this whole discovery that he's a wolf thing. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they did a lot of work with him to see how all of these changes, going from like being this random kid living in the Two Rivers to where he is now, this entire journey that he's gone through, how did it change him? Like, how did it affect him? How did it make him grow? I didn't feel anything. And that's one of the worst things for a character for me. I think that they could still have done a lot with Nynaeve. I didn't like her, but I wanted to like her because I like this character who is very powerful, but is also basically a brat. And I was so curious to see what's going to happen and if she was going to start getting into fights, you know, with the other Aes Sedai, butting heads and stuff, which she does, but not in an interesting way. Not in a way where it's like, okay, she has a point, or that she's challenging the status quo and making things better or making any real effect on anything around her, as opposed to just pissing people off and sometimes just getting them into worse situations. I was like, you know, it could be interesting to have her just go rogue in the tower. I would have loved to see that. And even the mental block that she has, that could have also been very interesting. Like, how is she going to unlock the powers again? Because she is very powerful, and of course we're going to need her at some point. Like, what is she going to do with her magic? It must be something very important. I would have liked to see it. I would have liked to see it. I don't know if they would have been able to, but I think they could have. There was at least potential. But now we'll never really know. And it's such a shame to me because I think these characters are so interesting. Majority of them. I feel like if it ever, even if it gets picked up again later by another studio, as these kind of things sometimes do tend to do, there's, let's say they have some other reboots, it's not gonna be with these same actors, and that it could be a good thing, I suppose, but I don't know. Especially with the adults, I really feel like they had it with the casting, especially with the bad guys. Like, oh my god, Lanfear and Moghedien. I Even Liandrin, like, I don't know, I don't want to see anybody else in these roles. I was already so invested in it. I was honestly extremely so sad when they canceled it. I even decided that I was gonna just read the books because I was like, this cannot be the end of this story for me. I need to know what happens. I need to spend more time in this world and I need to know more about these characters. And I'm aware that it's different in the TV show than it is in the books. And I thought I was ready for those changes, but I didn't actually make it very far in the books. And I'm not saying necessarily because it was different from the TV show, but I think just with how far I had gotten in the story and the characters that I love so much, I was so excited to kind of pick up from where I was that it was hard for me to start over again from the beginning. But I will try again. As of now, though, that's just the end of the Wheel of Time. And we're never going to get more of it, which is extremely sad, in my opinion. Especially because I think there are so many other shows that have gotten a lot more leeway. Shows that are not even this good, that don't even have this potential. Like, personally, this might be a hot take, but personally, I don't think that the Rings of Power deserves more of their time and effort and money than the Wheel of Time does. I don't feel like it has more potential. I honestly, I don't even think it's that good. It also, season 2 did get better from season 1, which is something that I think that the Wheel of Time also did. It was getting better with every season. But I think that I'm being as honest as I can here, right? The Rings of Power feels like something that they're making just because it's an established franchise and they want to milk the Lord of the Rings as much as they can. And therefore, they can't really give up on the Rings of Power or admit that they messed up, you know? So they're just pouring more and more money into this project. And I'm not saying that it sucks. I do watch it. I did watch it and I'll continue to watch it, but it's just like the Wheel of Time, I feel it's something that they could have established, something new. It has 1,000,001 books. Like they could have done something with this, but they chose to sacrifice it. And I personally think that that's just a huge shame. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the Wheel of Time for now. Subscribe if you want to stay updated on any of my other series reviews, particularly if you want to see my eventual breakdown of the Wheel of Time itself, because I will be doing that at some point, just to make sure, you know, you don't miss it when that video comes out. I am kind of curious, though, if you did like the Wheel of Time, what was your favorite thing about it? Like, who's your favorite character? And, like, how did you feel about Perrin? Like, I can't be the only one who feels like he was the most weirdly kind of underused character of the main, at least. Though I might be wrong. He could, of course, be someone's favorite character. That would be interesting. I would love to know why. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios!